Hi, mystery writers. Welcome to the studio. And today I want to talk about something so important. It's how to introduce your detective to your devoted mystery readers, because there's a right way to do it and a wrong way to do it, right? Um, you've done all your work on your character background and you know a lot about your detective. But what you want to do when you introduce your detective at the beginning of the book is to get your reader to care about them and give them a hint of the skills they have that are going to help them solve that mystery. You don't have to show all their skills, but you want to show one of their strong skills. So let's kind of dive into this and talk about how it all works, all right? When a reader begins your mystery story, they want to know certain elements very soon. In a mystery, your reader wants to meet your detective, right? And your reader wants to know if your sleuth is a character they want to follow in for the next 300 or so pages of your book. Um, And one of my very favorite quotes about writing is from Scott Myers about screenwriting, but it works for stories too. Go into the story, and that's what you want to do. You start with a story. Forget about describing your character, how tall they are, how short they are. Just go into the story. Um, and that's what you need to do with your detective. Go into the story. So most of the time it's hard for new authors to start a story and get into the story. And it's easy to present the protagonist ordinary world as, well, ordinary. And that's not going to get your readers excited or encourage them to read the next 300 pages of your book. Uh, it's not about waking up in the morning and looking in the mirror with a physical description or going on a morning jog. All right. Readers want to see your protagonist in action. They want action. All right. So, how do you do that with your detective? How do you introduce your character in that first chapter of your mystery? Your reader wants to know their name and a skill they'll later use to solve the mystery. Uh, The name gives your reader instant access to your detective. You may put this in, for instance, by somebody calling their name, all right? Somehow they want to know who your sleuth is. Or you can just say, Eleanor Smith walked into the room not expecting to see something, that gives them their name, all right? You're going to cement that character's name in your reader's mind. Uh, and then for this skill that shows your detective, uh, that demonstrates your I don't know how to say this, that demonstrates your detective's ability to solve a mystery and figure out who the bad guy is at the end. It doesn't have to be big at the beginning. You're just going to hint at, oh, this person is pretty logical. Or, oh, this person notices tiny details. Whatever it is, some little skill that your character has that you've already put in your character description, you're going to show them using that skill at the beginning of your story. You want your reader to know how your detective operates. How do they work? How do they approach a problem? This is what you're going to show them at the beginning. So the sooner you know these two things, the character's name and a certain skill they may have, this aren't all their skills, just one skill, right? Um, the sooner you show these two things, the sooner your reader will feel connected to your detective. And that's what we want at the beginning, because your detective is their guide through the mystery. Their detective is the one that goes down those false trails and interviews the suspects and thinks about what they know so far and gets discouraged and gets overwhelmed, all of these things. But at the beginning, you want your reader to care about them, so they're going to follow through while they approach the big mystery, which hasn't even entered the story yet, right? Okay. So setting and backstory do not get your reader into the story. So you really want to start with some showing your sleuth in some kind of action. So knowing you need to introduce your detective really soon in your story, you still need to make a story. This is the story that your reader's going to go into, right? So you can set your story in motion, all right? Um, so let's talk a little bit about the beginning. The folks at Thoughtful Learning um, stress this importance. The beginning of your story sets the tone for everything that will happen next. An opener is like an appetizer, offering a tasty morsel of what's to come. So you don't need to dump a whole lot of stuff in the beginning. You just want to get your reader into that story. And that's also why you want your detective right at the beginning. Your detective is your reader's guide, and they want to know them, and they want to know who they are and how they operate and what their skills are and what their shortcomings are, for that matter. So let's talk about 3 great ways that you can start off your story with your detective and get your reader there into the story. The first is action. So start in the middle of things happening, and this is called in medias res. Show your detective in action. Um, if they're a law enforcement officer, maybe they're winding up another case. But the focus is on getting your detective doing something that illustrates either a skill or a weakness. Either way, your reader's going to connect with them and start caring about them. Uh, think of the opening of Raiders of the Lost Ark. Uh, it isn't the main story yet, but man, when he gets in that um, helicopter and there's snakes, whoa. Okay, so it just introduces their character, and then just back to the Raiders of the Lost Ark for a minute. 1, their skill, he gets away with what he's taking, and 2, a weakness, the snakes. Okay, so action, the character's actually doing something right away. All right, and the second is dialogue, and that is once again, you want to start in the middle of things. So bring your reader into a conversation that your sleuth is having with someone else. Uh, and it's either face to face, which is the best, or on the telephone. Maybe the telephone rings and they're called to some kind of action. All right. So give your detective something to say in that conversation that illustrates a skill. It just may be their knowledge about things, or knowledge about a certain area or a certain building in the town or whatever it is. But it's something that hints at what's going to come later when they're actually on the case, the mystery they're going to solve in your story. All right. And the third thing, so we have action, we have dialogue. There's 2 ways to introduce your story. And the third way is by posing a question about your detective. Um, so your sleuth can question, why they are where they are, or why another character is acting a certain way. So in this case, you have you're jumping into the story, and right away your detective is going, "What's going on here? I don't understand why X is happening," or "Look at that character over there. He's doing something weird." Um, but ask a question, and then the reader's going to wonder, well, what's that got to do with it, and how is that going to impact it? And right away, they're in the story. That's what you want. You want to get your readers into the story through your detective, all right? Uh, so, um, I hope that helps. Your detective carries the story for your reader, and it's so important to jump right into the story and get your readers involved. You have the whole rest of the book for any backstory you want to bring in, or narrative descriptions of their setting. But right now, you want to get your reader connected to your detective. Show them in action, show them doing things, show them asking questions. So the reader is going to follow along and feel like, one, they know your detective, at least a little bit right at the beginning, right? And two, that something is happening right now. Something's happening right now that makes them want to turn the page. Okay, now that guy over there is doing something, and now your detective's gonna figure out what's going on, and they're gonna turn the page to find out what's going on. And that's the whole idea at the beginning, is introduce them with their name, show a skill, show them in action, and get your reader to keep reading and by connecting with your detective. This is the setup for the rest of your story. So, right here at the beginning, the primary goal is to get your reader acquainted with your detective. And you want to build empathy, you want your reader to connect with them. Um, and so I hope that helps. If you have any questions about doing this and why showing how they get up in the morning doesn't work, put them in the comments below. I'm happy to answer questions, and thank you so much for being here. And of course, keep writing.